Oh, yeah, I thought about that a lot. It is the act of forgiveness. Just to say a bit more about that, to forgive is an act of generosity. Most of the time, I just look in my own experience, forgiveness is not easily forthcoming, especially in certain cases where I want to get even, I want revenge. But I notice that in terms of being able to be effective as a living human being, to unburden myself with a bunch of grudges, things to hold on to, it doesn't it doesn't produce anything good at all. And so, in a lot of it, to a large, being forgiving is a generosity to myself. And the other thing is, it isn't. A lot of times people think that forgiving is somehow going into agreement with whatever happened, which of course you're not. You don't agree with it, but it's really just being willing to give up the claim, the right, feeling like I have a right to get revenge, giving up the claim for revenge. You don't have to give up revenge. I don't think that's going away because it's part of the wiring of being a human being. So I practice that, and that's a real freedom for me. I have a lot more energy as a result. It happened for me when I was about 28 years old, and I had been married, had two sons. I was a musician, and my wife and I had separated, actually divorced, and I was just very confused. Didn't know what my life was for. Really felt very defeated over the divorce and breakup of my family. And my uncle had done this program down in. I was born in San Jose, California, and he was still living in California. He invited me to come and do this program called the S Training, and I was not real excited about it. So it took him about a year. And finally, he just kept on and on. I said, okay. So I went down to San Jose and I did the program. And I should say, when I entered that program, I did not like people, didn't trust people, really pretty profoundly turned off about the human race. Didn't, the Vietnam War, to me, it was like just the stupidest thing that the United States could have gotten into. And I was just very discouraged about the prospects for the future of humanity, given that kind of stupidity. He asked me to promise, he said, you got to promise me that my uncle, whatever you do, you will complete this course. That's kind of a weird request. Why? What are they going to do? He says, well, no, he says, it's nothing, that you can't deal with, but there's a good chance that whatever it is you're stuck with is going to come up and it will be uncomfortable. And so I'm asking you to promise to see your way through it. So I promised. And it's a good thing I did because I would have left. And there was this moment where I was out in the parking lot smoking a cigarette on a break and thinking about leaving. And it was so uncomfortable. I mean, I was having to confront all of my own out of integrity, really, my own lack of integrity. It's awful. And then I don't know, one of the volunteers came out and said, the course is about to begin, return to your seat. And so I did. And I don't even know what got me back in the room other than I had promised my uncle I wouldn't leave. And something happened by my willingness to keep my word with him. And by the time we had the end of the evening was the next break. And I had some kind, I don't even know how to explain it, but I had some kind of a breakthrough, a transformation. And the way it occurred was I looked around the room. There were 250 other people in this course. And all I could see was, no matter who I looked at, I was looking at myself. It was all me. And that's a weird thing to say, but me, like the way, the way I know myself deeply, intimately, like the me that I always am when I'm 4 years old and when I'm 15, and the same me as always there. That me was present with everyone that I saw, and my whole relationship with people shifted completely. And it was so earth shattering to me. It took me a while, about 6 months really, to sort of reacclimate myself to this whole new reality about who I was in the world and what it meant to be alive, and who are other people for me. And up until then, all I wanted to do was play music and be a musician. But now I started to see that, yeah, I'm here for a much bigger purpose than just playing music. So I still played music, but I just stopped identifying myself as a musician. I got involved with a hunger organization called the Hunger Project, and the commitment was to end hunger in the world. At that time, there were about 18 million people starving to death every year, and most of them were children under the age of 5. And so I became really active in that organization, and ended up going on their staff down in San Francisco, and became the global enrollment manager. And the goal was to enroll 6 million people in ending hunger. And I should say that the enrollment part, it was about enrolling people in committing themselves to creating a context. My other job in the Hunger Project was the volunteer coordinator. So I managed about 600 volunteers around the world. It was interesting. You don't really manage volunteers because they're not there for a paycheck. They're committed to something. So it really became more, I guess you could call it management by inspiration, but really it's about coaching people. War as a means to, solve disputes between, well, countries, but also regional wars and civil wars and all of it. To me, it's when war occurs, it is, well, it's crazy. It is crazy. It is madness, on a very large scale. But it really demonstrates how, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but how weak we are, unaware we are about power of language and our ability to communicate. War is a form of communication, but it's like the opposite of forgiveness to the extreme. And so costly. Oh my goodness. In fact, if we don't have a breakthrough with this, we may not continue to exist. Literally, and it's what they refer to as an existential crisis. Like we could go out of existence, and we could take a lot of life with us, the rest of living things on planet Earth. So it's kind of like we've attained a place where we have all this great technology in terms of in the world of doing things, practical things, and having things. But when it comes to being able to be responsible, and by responsible, I mean be a match for the power that we have in terms of destruction, we have not really attained the breakthrough that we need in terms of who we are being. So we have this, it's kind of interesting in a way. I foresee a time where we will have a breakthrough, where we may even be close to it now. Given what's going on in the world right now, it's hard to tell. But it's there. I think we are going through a process of having to realize that we have to be responsible for how smart we are for the wrong reasons. We're smart to build super weapons rather than super livingry, super things to enhance the quality of life on this planet. So it's just a shift in the context that's required. Yeah, I thought a lot about this. For me, I have four children, and now I have 10 grandchildren, 7 great grandchildren. my granddaughters are having kids. 2 oldest boys, they're actually 20 years older. Those are the boys that when I divorced with their mother. And then I got remarried, and 20 years later, we adopted 2 children. And these kids came from a background of drug abuse and alcohol abuse. So there were lots of struggles. They had learning issues, and so we homeschooled them. And then they went to a certain private school that specialized in kids that had learning issues, difficult. But one of those kids got addicted to drugs and heavy drugs, meth, methamphetamines. And it started when he was about 17. And wow, it was really difficult, especially meth. Meth is a terrible drug case. When they're high, they're gone. What's present is a lying, cheating, conniving commitment to get more money to buy more drugs. And it really is like that. Unbelievable. And so, many, many times I just wanted to say, okay, that's it. I'm done with you. I don't want to have you as a kid anymore. This is too much to bear. But I just would not do it because I gave my word, and I would go get him out of jail again. And sometimes places far, far away. One time I had to drive to Idaho. Another time I had to drive down to Central California to get him out of jail, and then go through the rehab thing. And he must have gone through rehabilitation, I don't know, 7 or 8 times, and then would relapse again. And there was this kind of a crisis point where and I got to say, it was kind of a growth experience for me. And it had, the forgiveness part was a big part. But the question I asked myself, well, could I love my son as a drug addict for the rest of his life? And the answer was, yeah, I could. And so it's kind of like I stopped resisting what was so. Interestingly enough, he got himself off drugs. He lives up in Alaska, works up there, and he's clean and sober. Wow. I don't know how that happened, but something having to do with love. Probably the thing I'm most proud of. Early in the Hunger Project, I had the job of the regional manager for the northwestern part of the United States, and they asked me if I would also include now Canada. So that I was an area manager. So I was northwestern U.S. and Canada. Well, the Canadians, they have a little different culture than the Americans. They're very very willing to help people in other countries. Much more, almost, it's just a given almost. Really successful in Canada. And we started committees in Vancouver and Edmonton and Montreal and Toronto. And they just blossomed. They were just Canadian people were just, they had a lot of enrollment. And then but the problem was, there was no Canadian Hunger Project. So, people would donate money, but we couldn't send it across the border. So it was just sitting in a bank account. So I proposed to the executive director, this is in San Francisco, that we maybe should now consider creating an international hunger project, or however they wanted to do it, a hunger project of Canada, a hunger project of, different countries. it really kind of scared them. I don't think they were quite ready to be international. They were not, well, how should I say it? The comment the executive director said to me was, given where you're coming from about this, you don't stand a chance in hell of having this happen. And I said, what? What, me? She said, I want you to take the afternoon off. By the way, she was one of my mentors and really a powerful woman. This woman is amazing. So Joan says, I want you to take the afternoon off and go be with yourself and see where you're coming from. And I was really confused. I like, what do you mean, where am I coming from? I want to create an international. And so I did. I was just kind of being with it. And then I started to see that where I was coming from is, you have to do this, not presenting it as an opportunity. I was presenting it like, a moral obligation almost. So the next day with the Canadians, I went to the board meeting and we presented the possibility. We see this as an opportunity for the Hunger Project to be an international organization, but we will honor whatever you choose. And then we left, and they did it. But in a very short time, there was a Hunger Project in Australia, New Zealand, France, England, Germany, and Sweden. Boom. It was truly like, and then it exploded from there. Yeah. Very cool. I'm proud of that. My children and my grandchildren, and now my great grandchildren. But that's kind of a given. That's easy. And music has played a role also. I play jazz and I write music, I improvise. It's a kind of a meditation for me. But I would say the one that most has impacted my life are horses, my relationship with horses. I have had horses now since 1981. Just there's something about the nature of horses, their ability to be is extraordinary. The space that they generate, the non-physical part, what's metaphysical, beyond physical, is a sacred space, and it keeps me in touch with nature, to the eternal, to that which gives life and creativity to everything, whatever that is. That humanity won't wake up in time, pull off this next breakthrough. We need to move from a condition of adversary, distrust, not listening, assuming, to a condition in which we actually can see ourselves in others, regardless of what culture you're from or belief system, or all that there's this fundamental identification. Oh, who you are is me. And that actually is possible. Yeah. But that's my greatest fear, that we won't wake up in time. There's a microbiologist. She's actually famous, and I can't remember her name. But anyway, she's one of the leading thinkers of our time. And she was asked to give her estimate of what's the future hold for humanity. And she studies ancient microbes. In other words, from billions of years ago, little fossils she has a record of what she's discovered. What she says is that most things come into existence on the planet Earth, and at first they're very, very aggressive because they have to establish themselves. And so as they grow and proliferate and get established, there's a tipping point in which they need to have a breakthrough from being aggressive and adversarial to being cooperative, collaborative, and coordinating with other species. And she says, if they don't make that leap, they go out of existence. She says most species don't make it. The ones that we see around, especially the ones that are collaborative and coordinating, like fungi and trees, she says they have made that leap. And she says the jury is out on humanity. It's a transformation. It is what's required, a transformation, and we can do it. For me, life is this extraordinary opportunity to get to experience a dimension of physicalness, texture, color, temperature, feelings in a real form. It's not a dream, you know. I mean, wow, what a trip! But it is a kind of a dream, also, just a very slow moving dream. You know, like someone said, a noun. You know, like a noun, an object, but in grammar, a noun is really just a slow moving verb, and that is kind of the way physical reality is. I mean, I one of the things I've discovered is as human beings, we can bend reality. It's not nearly as solid as we think it is, really, like sorcerers. Yeah, sorceresses. And to do it purposefully in a way that makes a difference in the quality of life. So, you know, what makes life fulfilling for me is using that gift to make a difference. Yeah. And showing other people how to do it. Like, wow, doesn't get better than that. we're we're learning to be gods. That's kind of the short version. That this is kind of I see life as a kind of a school. It's like this informal school with got lots of lessons in it, never ending lessons. I mean, literally, if you're still alive, there are lessons. and but it's like a kindergarten for learning how to be gods. That's what I think. Yeah.